James is still talking about this. So go ahead, James.
Okay, yeah. So I was talking about the ancient Assyrians rendering people not just kissing the toes of the Assyrian monarch, but also on their backs, submitting to the Assyrian monarch. And at first, when I saw that, I was going, "What are they doing?" But they would be pretending to be dogs. You know how dogs go?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, funny.
Yeah, it's funny. And I think it might actually be mentioned the El Amarna tablets. No, it's the Amarna tablets, but it's often misnomered as the El Amarna tablets. They were written to and from King Tut's, probably his dad, and to his granddad, probably his granddad, Tutankhamun and Amenhotep, and we number him the third. And some of them are actually written to King Tut. And a lot of them are not really addressed to a particular person or whatever. It's just to their monarch. But I think they have some of the underlings of the Egyptian king saying, "I fall on my front 7 times before you, maybe on my back 7 times." I might be imagining that. I just kind of woke up. You probably saw me. And I'm a little bit tired out from yesterday after fairly long and fairly strenuous. So if I blew that, I apologize. Something you can check out, Amarna tablets. You can get it fairly easily in translation from some university libraries. I got access to the stuff, the Amarna tablets, at University of Winnipeg. It's not even the best university in Winnipeg. And there are 2 universities in Winnipeg. One University of Manitoba and the University of Winnipeg. Well, you can check it up. They don't have one at the university library here. Fact is, you might be able to get a translation on the internet right now. The classic translation was done by Samuel A.B. Mercer, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he was Canadian. Might have been working out of the University of Toronto. Something like that. Anyway, so this is kind of like Obama's foreign policy. Shows him visiting Vietnam. He's got some functionary to his left, and maybe the leader or misleader of Vietnam. Let's call him Vajda. Oh, that's Russian for leader. How do you translate that into Italian? Il Duce, which really is the Italian form of Duke. In French, it's D-U-C, Italian D-U-C-E, and in English, D-U-K-E. But it all comes from Latin, and that means to lead, actually. Ducere is the verb, the infinitive of the verb ducere. And, yeah, Vajda, so that's what Stalin was called, Vajda. Il Duce, that's Benito Mussolini. Führer in German, there you go. And Imam in the Shiite tradition, leader. In the Sunni tradition, that's a Muslim tradition, it's Imam is more like someone who leads maybe prayer, certain other forms of what might be called liturgy by a religious studies type. Liturgy, it's a good Greek word. Yeah. Anyway, so there he is. And behind these two, behind Obama and this...
Check it out. These are the first 2 silvery fir tree tomatoes ripened this year.
That's nice. They're looking very nice. Yeah. They look tasty. And that's the most important.
And you'll get to taste them tomorrow, I think.
Well, that's good. Looking forward. Anyway, behind this functionary, and I think he was the leader or misleader, the Vajda of the Annamese, but it's in the Annamese Empire, right, which includes South Vietnam, which would include Annam and Cochin China. The Annamese are just part of what used to be northern Vietnam. And behind them is this horrible-looking statue. It looks as though it might have been in gold. It should have been brass, because Ho Chi Minh is a really brassy character. And then there's red behind it. It's kind of gruesome looking, very aggressive looking. Now, Ho Chi Minh, people say, oh, he was a freedom fighter. Yeah, he was. He's fought against freedom, just the way The firefighters fight against fires. They don't fight for fires. Yeah? There's a certain ambiguity built into that term freedom fighter, and almost every freedom fighter in the world ever since the American Revolution has fought against freedom. Might have advertised him or herself, generally him, as fighting for freedom, but eventually they show their true colors, which is like, brown shirts, red shirts, blue shirts, whatever. Freedom fighters in China eventually wore blue shirts. They ended up being National Socialists, or their equivalent, some difference. So there he is, and then he's in Laos, and he's making huge apologies for all the bombing the Americans did, and the stats he's quoting, this is Obama, I believe, saying Americans dropped more ordnance or whatever, bombs on Laos, I think he was saying. I'd heard the stat on Vietnam or whatever, in Indochina. Then the Allies did, or the Americans did, in all of World War II. Well, the way the Americans fought the war in Vietnam and Indochina was, they didn't really bomb the cities that much. Bombed Hanoi, or the harbor at Hanoi, a little bit. They were even afraid to mine, believe it or not, mine the harbor of Hanoi for fear of rustling a few feathers amongst the Russian enablers of that ugly little regime. And what they'd do is there'd be some soldiers or whatever, some insurgents, infiltrators or whatever, commies of one description or another, in a particular area, and they just bomb the you-know-what out of it. We'll say the spit out of it. And generally these folks didn't hang in urban areas. They just sneak into villages by night and do their terror there by night, and they had the villagers living in mortal fear of these commie terrorists. And you'll get left-wing apologists for third world so-called freedom movements. In Vietnam they did a poll, and I think it was supposed to have been on separation, between North and South Vietnam. It indicated the majority of people in South Vietnam were for Ho Chi Minh. Yeah, that's right. Okay. How would they have done that poll? Was it done a secret, the equivalent of a secret ballot? I don't think so. You go in the village, are you for this, that, and the other thing? And of course, it would get around. The commies would have come in at night and said, so what do you say? They would have been there the night before. You know what you better say, or else you're dead meat. And you'll die slowly on the hook or whatever. And it'll happen to your children, your wife, your relatives, so on and so forth. So of course they're going to say, well, we want Ho Chi Minh. But what they really want is just to survive. So don't take any of that seriously. You folks that have been spouting that line for decades now, I guess, more than half a century. It's just stupid. How do you do a poll in that situation where the commies are doing revolutionary terrorism? We've just got people living in mortal dread of it. And this is not just, understand, not the place that they rule, it's South Vietnam, that people just spreading throughout there. And many of them, they were indigenous South Vietnamese, they called them the Viet Cong, but they were revolutionary terrorists. They were terrorists. What happens when you mix revolution with terror? You get terror. Okay. It's like when you mix politics with economics. What do you get? You get politics. It's happened when you mix religion with politics, you get politics. What happens when you mix religion with terror? You get terrorism. Osama bin Laden, for example. Zarqawi, whatever his name is. Ayman al-Zawahiri, or whatever his name was. I think all of those guys are, thankfully, dead. Of course, they're not thankful about it, but anyone who has any moral compass is going to be happy those guys are gone. Oh, yeah, and so in Laos, that's what he's doing. And then he drops off Japan. Huge, big apology for Hiroshima. Wow, okay. We talked about this before, but I'm going to keep on talking about it. At the time, those two bombs, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Hiroshima and Nagasaki were dropped. The Japanese army was 2 million strong, and strong probably applies to smell as much as anything. And when I'm talking about smell, I'm talking about their ethics. 2 million strong, and they were all just concentrated in Fortress Japan, waiting for the inevitable American invasion. No, half of them were still in Asia. 1 million in the Japanese mainland, and 1 million in Asia. Now, hopefully we're agreed. You know, there are a lot of folks out there who believe in narratives, and they don't, hanging out in the left wing, of course, Donald Trump believes in narratives, and you know, I just don't believe in them. I believe in trying to establish what are facts. But hopefully we're on the same ground when we say World War II in 1945 didn't last all of the year. Fact is, it lasted barely over half a year. How many folks in Vietnam, speaking of Vietnam, did the Japanese army kill off using scorched earth policy? Now, this isn't even neighboring Korea or China. Kill off using scorched earth policy in the, we'll say in the 2/3 of 1945 that were still fighting months. It's really 7 months and a few days. They killed off 1 million. So even with the inflated statistics that lefties like throwing out when it comes to Allied atrocities or stuff like that, I don't think they've gotten up to 1 million yet for the combined victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I think generally it's agreed as something like 600,000 or something like that. It's an awful number, but 1 million against 600,000, and I don't necessarily accept those stats. I don't think it's much lower than 500,000, but yeah, it could be. I've run across stats. Now, Kurt Vonnegut, these might have been inflated statistics too, was there underneath Dresden, not in Dresden, when the Allies firebombed it. I think that was using napalm, and a lot of the buildings there were made out of wood. And Vonnegut claims it was 50,000, so that's in Slaughterhouse 5. I don't know when that came out. It might have been in the late 60s or something like that, maybe 1960. Slaughterhouse 5, it's a novel. But he was there. He's a prisoner of war, apparently, in a slaughterhouse in number 5, hence the title. And somehow or another, they survived. And there mustn't have been a firestorm up top of them, because there would have been no oxygen for them to survive them. Anyway. But recently I was reading, this is a textbook, understand, used for college or university instruction. University up in Canada, they have different designations down in the United States. But university in Canadian terms, in the United States. And they were saying 200,000 got killed in Dresden. And that's a slight case of inflation. Slight case of inflation. It's just be lefties trying to make the Americans look like horrible brutes and stuff like that. So, so there he's just peed over. Obama has American reputation. 3 countries, 3 peeings. Absolutely shameful. Absolutely shameful. You look at what the Americans did. They brought democracy, something like real democracy, to Japan. And they did it with 6 years of dictatorship from about 45 to 51. They weren't letting the Japanese war criminals take over again, or the people that had sympathized with them. And they actually helped, they sent a guy who brought quality control to the Japanese, called Deming, D-E-M-I-N-G. And he helped set them on a course for really making their economy efficient. The Americans did. And, they tried their best in Vietnam. The military did. Their military was, the Americans, government, I should say, the military was recalcitrant. JFK was the only one who had a policy that would have been effective against, possibly effective, no guarantee, against revolutionary terrorist guerrilla action. The rest of them, Johnson and Nixon, were pursuing kind of like mass warfare and stuff like that, bombing, so on and so forth. It doesn't work against this sort of stuff where the terrorists can come in overnight, they hang in the villages, and then they retreat, so on and so forth. They don't concentrate. And you have to have armies concentrated in order for bombing to be effective. And Laos is a similar sort of thing as in Vietnam. Anyway, peed all over their legacy. As Pauline mentioned, in Cameroon, they were saying, we'll do everything we can. No, it's everything we don't want to do. In the Cameroon, there's no way they were going to take on after they've already retreated against ISIS and other ne'er-do-wells in the Middle East. They weren't going to go into there. Their policy is a matter of peace. So this is the legacy he's trying to set, peace. Okay, Obama and you of his ilk out there. Now understand, Obama was more competent, because he at least handled the economy, than every one of the Republican presidents in my lifetime, going back actually to before my parents' lifetime. My dad died 2.5 years ago, something like that. Maybe it's 3, almost to the day. And he was born in 1923. He's almost 100 years old. So every Republican president during his lifetime was a thoroughgoing incompetent, more incompetent than Obama, with the one exception of George Bush Sr. I want to make that perfectly clear. George Bush Jr. didn't know how to handle the domestic economy. He didn't know how to handle foreign policy. He let Dick Cheney set his foreign policy, and Dick Cheney let Donald Trump set his foreign policy. So Rumsfeld, I should say, Donald Trump. Rumsfeld was bad, but not as bad as Trump. Anyway, Rumsfeld's an idiot. He goes into Iraq. George Bush Sr. went in there with 500,000 people. He had the Saudis paying for it, and much of it, maybe almost all of it. And there's Rumsfeld. We can get by with a little over 100,000 because we got this huge technology. Not that much difference in 10 years in terms of technology. You got smarter bombs. They were smart bombs, but more of them, and maybe a little bit smarter. Didn't work out. They let the Anyway, I just looked at the faces of these with Kerry, the exception of John Kerry, useful idiots. That's what Stalin used to call, or Lenin, his predecessor, used to call too much, more horsepower than they have brain power. You can hear the car going by. More horsepower than brain power. Useful idiots. Lenin termed apologists for communism useful idiots. Of course, when they were trying to be nice, they called them fellow travelers, which in Russian is Sputnik, actually. Yeah. The S would be, might be cognate with path, and the S is kind of like the equivalent of Latin C-O-N, con, with. Someone who shares the path, fellow traveler. And then Nick, I shouldn't have to explain. A beatnik is someone who likes the beat or something like that. And, Anyway, here's the thing about setting a legacy of peace. You can't make peace in a year, especially around the world. You got that, Obama and all you flunkies? You know, there's this saying out there. I don't know where it came from. I wish it would go away. And here I am reviving it. But it takes two to make a fight. Well, tell that to the Poles in 1939. There were two making a fight, but it was the Germans and the Russians, and they weren't fighting over Poland. They'd actually agreed to partition it. That was going to happen whether the Poles fought or not. They tried. It didn't last long. Joseph Stalin stomped into Poland 2 weeks later by agreement with the Germans. It was in the Molotov-von Ribbentrop Pact, or whatever you want to call it, signed the 23rd of August 1939. And they already had bloody hands, both of the people signing that pact. But they got a whole lot more bloody. So, takes two to make a fight? No, it doesn't. Tell that to the Czechs leading up to World War II. They didn't have a fight, but they could have. They just got taken over. Tell that to the Austrians. Well, they didn't fight. But it could have been a fight. They just let the Germans take them over. Tell that to the Ruskies, actually. In 1941. When was that? June 22nd. Remember, it's clear as day. No, I wasn't. I'm not that old. That was about 13 years before my time. But somewhere around there, late spring, the Ruskies eventually ended up fighting. Stalin couldn't believe that Hitler was attacking. No, it took one to make that fight. That was Nazi Germany under the misleadership, the Führership. Führerschaft, is that what they call it? Shaft actually is probably cognate with ship and shape. Shaft. Freundschaft is friendliness. Friendship. Anyway. Or scape. Landscape. Anyway. Two to make a fight. That's ridiculous. That's something parents tell kids. And two to make a fight? Was that the case in my family? I had an older brother. And we had a fair number of fights. The last fight we had was a tie. Every one before then, I lost. I was 2 years, 4 months younger than my older brother. And the last one I lost was before 1970. So at the latest, I was 16 years old. And my brother wasn't much of an athlete. And I was getting to be a little bit of an athlete. I was more fast than I was strong. But that's the last fight we had. And as I told them once, you know who was starting every one of the fights. I wouldn't have started the fights. Why? Who'd want to get beaten up? I may have some masochistic tendencies. I think most people do. I think of myself as a masochist. I don't like suffering. That was the last fight because my brother knew the next fight he started, he'd lose. He'd lose. And the reason why he didn't keep on picking on me was because I fought back. So it takes one to start a fight, sometimes two people are just ready and raring to go. But it takes two to make a peace. You hear that, Obama, you stupid chimp? It takes two to make a peace. And when you go around making peace with communists, you're not making peace. All you're giving them is breathing time. Now here he is. He's kind of looking down on Putin. Putin's kind of looking at his tie knot or something like that. Putin's a weasel. Obama's a huge, tall guy. Yeah. Trying to get peace with Russia. Didn't work out. They're still going like crazy. What did Obama do about Ukraine? I don't know. I think he supplied the Ukraine. But he didn't do nothing. He didn't do anything. How's that for granted? Anyway, trying to make peace with Iran. John Kerry's trying to do that. Although,
you still have 4 minutes.
There we go. John Kerry. And he's saying, I think we've got something that's, I don't want to put words in my mouth, but I'm going to anyway. Lasting peace with Iran. They've agreed to stop their nuclear bomb program. Huh? or atomic bomb program. Probably. I hope that's all it is right now. Huh? No. Here we are. It's 2016, and we're here 9 years later, and they're closer than ever to getting an atomic bomb. What were these chimps doing about North Korea? I don't know. North Korea just kept on going and going and going. Iran, their philosophy, and this isn't fundamentalist Islam, it's mainstream Islam. People are going around styling mainstream Islam as fundamentalist. Islam is fundamentalist. It goes back to the Jewish tradition. Before that, the Hebrew, I guess you'd have to call it the Hebrew tradition, a monotheism, and things that came with it, like kosher, somewhat similar concept to halal, circumcision, stoning for adultery, stoning for this, that, and the other thing. This is mainstream Islam, and it's fundamentalist back to the Judeo-Christian tradition. It's not Christian. When they say Islam's part of the Judeo-Christian tradition, they've appropriated, understand it, it's appropriated Jesus. And it's absolutely disgusting what they've done with Jesus. They call him Isa. And they've appropriated even the forefathers of the Jews, calling them prophets and stuff like that. They want to call Abraham progenitor of the Ishmaelites as the Arabs. That's one thing. But when they're going around saying Isaac and Jacob and Joseph and Moses and David and Solomon are all prophets, Muslim prophets, that's appropriation. It's absolutely offensive. It's blasphemy. When they say Jesus wasn't crucified, they keep on saying, it's in the Quran again and again, the Son of Mary. It never says the Son of God. And it's emphasized he's not the Son of God, according to Muslims. 2 minutes?
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, it's offensive. It's offensive when they take over Jerusalem, the Temple Mount. It's the third holiest site in Islam. Like the Jews should say, well, you guys massacred under the orders of Muhammad, according to your own account, 600 to 900 Jews, and buried them in a square, maybe the main square in Medina. That's our second most holy site. You guys, we're going to put a big temple on top of that, not a mosque, and we're also going to put a big golden dome on top of that, and you guys ain't going to do nothing about it. And understand, Muslims would do something about it. There'd be huge massacres and so on and so forth. The Jews let the Muslims put up maintain a big golden dome on top of their most holy site, not the third most holy site, and they let the Al-Aqsa Mosque still exist, and they let people get up on I presume the minarets, get up there and yodel and make the call for prayers. I don't care if they do that, but when you're doing that in a secular society and you're amplifying it, that is wrong. There's no way they had loudspeakers and stuff like that in Muhammad's time. That shouldn't be allowed in secular societies. People shouldn't be subjected to that
now. Like it
stuff.
Should have, people have cell phones, just everybody gets their little cell phone notification.
Everyone's got a frickin',
well,
sorry
everyone
about
but
that.
us
has got a watch or something like that, and you can tell the time. You can tell the time when you're supposed to. Actually, it's more like sun up, sundown, or all this sort of stuff. You can kind of tell the time. And if God is so all-fired, cosmic, he'll actually forgive you for a little bit off. Just get your 5 prayer